Welcome, PEG TV viewers and candidates to the Aldermanic Candidate Forum, where we have 14 out of 17 candidates running for the Rutland City Board of Aldermen. There are 6 seats available for election that fall on every other year, which is the even years are the uneven number of 5, and the odd years are the even number of 6 that are reelected to an 11-member Board of Aldermen. 3 candidates have chosen not to run this year for re-election, so that opens up 3 seats that will allow for sure, at least 3 new city representatives on your Board of Aldermen, and then potentially 6. So these folks today running for office have taken the time out of their busy schedules to present their viewpoints to you, the viewer today, the electorate, and hoping to communicate to you where they stand on the issue. So with that, we'd like to also, of course, take the moment to thank PEG TV for putting this forum on. I'm Tom Donahue. I'll be hosting and moderating today. The group here at PEG TV includes, of course, the program coordinator, Chelsea Tice. I want to start with Chelsea because she's the organizer today, runs this channel, which is, by the way, 1085, which will be on your Comcast channel, but it'll also be on social media and such as well, because it'll be uploaded to YouTube. And also, of course, our fearless leader here, Executive Director Tom Leipold, and my former classmate from Rutland High School, Chris McCormick. Nancy Donahue is here. I mentioned Chelsea Tice, but also Sarah Nadler and Rich L. Nicky. So that's the A-team here at PEG TV. They're doing a great job in bringing this information to the public. And then, of course, the election itself on Tuesday, March 2nd. And we'll be giving you some wrap-up results and letting you know who of these fine candidates you're seeing today win that office and will be representing you in City Hall. So with that, I also want to just thank Keith Whitcomb. Keith is here from the Rutland Herald today and has joined us. And so we appreciate the Rutland Herald's interest in your comments, and appreciate Keith taking the time out of his day to cover this event as well. So let me begin again alphabetically. We're just going to keep it simple. So we'll start with John Atwood. And the opening question is as follows. Sorry, one other program note. Please, if you're not speaking, try to keep your mics muted. And I see you all are way ahead of me on that. But just out of respect for the one speaking, who will have the floor at that moment, if you could keep your mics muted until it's your turn. All right, back to the question. John Atwood, starting with you. Number 1, as a candidate for alderman, talking to a voter, what is one thing you believe you bring to the Board of Aldermen?
I would say, well, first off, I'd like to say thanks to you, Tom, for moderating this. Thanks to PEG TV for hosting this. And to the prospective voter, I would say the one thing that I bring to the Board of Aldermen would be my skills in system thinking. So I work as a systems architect at Casella Waste, and what I do for my day job is to take different business systems and combine them with different user groups and figure out how to combine those things together to create success for the entire organization. I think this process translates pretty well to city government because you have different groups, different departments with competing goals and competing interests. And in order to achieve success as a city, we really have to keep in mind the whole. We have to have a unified goal that we're all moving toward. And I think that my skills as a software architect would really translate directly and help to keep track of the details and link them to the cohesive whole. Thank you.
Very good. And again, alphabetical order, and that would bring up Rick Battles.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks to PEG TV for having us all on today. What could I bring to City Hall? As an alderman, I would bring some skills from the budget. I was employed for the city for 40 years. I'm familiar with the budget a little bit, not totally, but I know the ins and outs. Also, I would bring some trust, that the voters could trust me in those chambers. Willing to work with the other 10 aldermen, or excuse me, 10 aldermen, yes. And also to bring some more ideas to the board. Everyone talks about the tax rate. I'd be willing to sit down with, listen to the taxpayers. I also would be willing to also work with the other aldermen in trying to come to a conclusion on the tax rate. And also to, the biggest thing is to earn the voters' trust. And again, I think I could do a good job being in the city, Department of Public Works for 40 years. And I want to give back to the community what I've learned over the years. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. I'm looking for John Choppy Jr. John on with us? Not seeing John. All right, so we're going to go on to Ed Snyder DeAngelis, who I think has joined us now. Ed, yes, there you are. Ed, do you want me to read the question again for you?
No, I'm good, thanks. I just popped into my office.
Perfect. The floor is yours.
What would I bring to City Hall? I've lived here 11 years. I owned a little country store for 10 of them. I've seen this community. This community's become part of my family. My adopted family, born and raised here. They grew up here. My brothers, I've got 3 of them now. I really know this community well, and I think I've got a good handle on what it needs to thrive. There's just so many things that we can do to help people, between helping our homeless population, trying to bring a little more transparency to some things at City Hall, working on some of our utility problems with the water meters and whatnot, and our sewer problems that we've been experiencing, and just trying to really revitalize and help downtown Rutland thrive. As a small business owner, I no longer have my business, and I've got a pretty good idea of what causes them to fail. And while it certainly isn't Rutland's fault, there's a lot more Rutland could have done to help. Not just me, but other small business owners that are now finding other forms of employment. So I really think I just want to focus on that, just helping small business owners, reducing our homeless population by getting them into good, affordable housing, and really just bringing some transparency to City Hall.
Thank you, Chad. We have Mike Dungis. There's Mike.
Hey, Tom. Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. So, I've got this really interesting perspective. I grew up here in the area. I left for several years, came back, left again, and I'm back again. And whether it's the perspective of living in different cities across the country, or the perspective of the fact that I actually worked in building connected and smart communities over the past 5 or 6 years in my current role, those experiences have led me to understand where we can really help Rutland grow and move into kind of the next generation of what Rutland should look like and where it should end up. But I think the most important thing is listening to the voters in the community as to what they think that vision is and how that aligns with where they want to be, whether it's transportation to different parts of the state or outside of the state, right, to bring people in, whether that's supporting local businesses or growing the downtown. All of those different components really do work cohesively together, and the city really is the heart and the connector of all of those components. Economic development, diversity, and growing new types of populations in the community of Rutland are all really important factors in what we're doing and where we're headed. And I really think that my experience in those areas of connecting communities, bridging the digital divide, and really bringing new experiences outside of Rutland into the community is where I can really help the voters. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Mike. Thomas Franco.
Thank you, Tom. And, again, thank you to PEG TV for having us all here today. You know, when it comes to what I bring to the Board of Aldermen, I really see it as a fresh perspective and government experience. You know, when my partner and I moved back here to his home state of Vermont, we very intentionally chose Rutland as the place where we wanted to set our roots and build out our lives. And in a lot of ways, we are, you know, the direct result of ongoing efforts of community members to attract diversity and young professionals to the area. And so, you know, I bring that fresh perspective as someone who came here along that track. You know, I have extensive experience in government, having worked in US Congress, to having worked in a governor's office, to now my current role at a state Department of Education, and also working to bring broadband access to rural communities across Vermont. And so I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and get to work for the people of Rutland.
Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
Billy Gillum on the ballot as William Billy Gillum Jr.
Here we go. We're on. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, PEG TV. What I bring to the Board of Aldermen, I bring experience. I bring where we've been, and I'm going to try to bring us where we need to go. I've been with the board for a while, and then I left, and then I came back because the mayor wanted me to come back and help them deal with issues at hand. I come from a business background, large business, and I had my own business. I was also served in many charitable organizations here in the area. And I come from the northwest neighborhood where we've had some trouble there, and we started to turn the corner there. So I want to continue to do that. I want to continue to help the neighborhood get where we need to go. We're not there yet. We've done a lot of things here last year. We got some road projects going. We've got sidewalk projects going. We've got the new facility for kids to play in and adults to use. That was a great investment, and the timing was good. The taxpayers helped us with that, and we got it through. So I want to continue to move on and move the city in a direction where we are inclusive, and we are going to allow some opportunities for businesses to come here. But we need to move some of those barriers, and that's what City Hall needs to do. And that's what we are doing right now, is moving some of those barriers and make it easier to do business here. And I think once those things start to happen, then the people start coming into the area and start living here, and getting our housing stock up to a level where people can live here. So that's what we need to do from now to the future coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Russell Blitman.
Thank you, Tom, and thanks to PEG TV as well. I appreciate the time. I lived in Rutland for a little over 14 years, and like some of the other candidates, I've lived extensively around the country and actually abroad as well. So I do bring a different perspective to the board. I spent the first 20 years of my career, adult career, as a reporter and editor. And in the last 20 years, I've been working as a project manager and in charge of web operations for various companies. Currently, for the last 10 years, I've been running the website for the Vermont Country Store. As a former reporter and editor, I know how to listen and to communicate and to hear both sides of the story and find the center line. So I think I can facilitate communications between residents and the city to get things done. As a project manager, I can break down complex issues into smaller tasks with achievable goals so that over time, big changes can be made. Finally, my work in the fast evolving online world has shown me how organizations can identify and adopt change. So I want to apply this experience to foster a forward-looking city, and that by advocating a process-oriented approach that promotes diversity and celebrates diversity and inclusivity, we can create a plan to attract dynamic businesses and residents. This will grow our tax base, change the tone of discourse, and move Rutland on a transformative path of inclusion and equity. So that's what I bring to the board, is really a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusivity. And through that, I think we can grow the city.
Thank you, Russell.
Thank you.
Pam Johnston.
not fast enough to turn on the monitor or the mic. Thank you for this opportunity. Some folks may know me. I have been rather persistent, and that's what I would tell taxpayers. I would also indicate that I have advocated transparency, and I've actually worked for transparency, and successfully have gotten some transparency. And one of the things that I think that I learned as a one-term school board member is that people were using private email accounts, and that is also the case in the aldermen's realm of where they are not using public accounts. And I think that ought to change, because I think people ought to be reminded every time they use it that indeed they're doing the people's business. So I think that what I would bring to the board is not only a willingness to listen to both sides. Unfortunately, the political parties have sort of got involved in the race this year, and it becomes a proxy fight between Republicans and Democrats, and they each have their 6 slates, and then there's some random people that get left out. So I think I provide a bridge that as we go through this process. Have I used all my time already?
No, you're good.
Okay. So what I think I bring to the table is that I know the players. And so I have an opportunity as we go through this process, not only to say we tried that before, and because I started out when I first ran with the enthusiasm that I was going to change the world, and some realization that when you deal with a board of 11, it's like herding cats. So I think I would just provide some balance to the process. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Cam. Becca Mattis.
Thank you, Tom. You know, Cam's point about herding cats is exactly right. What I bring to the board is 4 years of experience. And in that 4 years, I had an incredible breadth of experience at the board because I was on so many committees and boards, many more than most. And I bring an attitude of very hard work, listening and thoughtfulness. I believe that I have earned a reputation on the board for being respectful to all and extremely hardworking. I have a particular philosophy about how to treat people and listen to people, and I bring that to all of the work that I do, whether it's on the animal control board, where we're dealing with really fraught situations with vicious dogs. You know, on the city-owned properties committee, where we're trying to get properties back on the tax rolls and reduce blight. You know, work with traffic safety. I'm an advocate for pedestrian safety, especially in just functional streets. I really cherish diversity of thought, and I work very hard to include all of the arguments to a situation. One example is all of my work on the sign ordinance that was recently passed. That was in my committee for over 2 years. And at first I thought it was an impossible task because every part was pulling on every other part and everyone had an opinion about signs and each opinion disagreed with every other opinion. And talk about herding cats. And I just spent a long time just listening and trying to understand the situation and involving everyone in the process so that everyone's needs were met. And that ordinance ended up passing with a great deal of buy-in. It was a big success and I'm proud of it because of the way that I went about it. So my philosophy and my attitude and my hard work and my experience are what I bring to the board. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Rebecca. Devin Neary.
Hey, Tom. Thank you for emceeing today, and thanks for Peg TV for hosting. This is my first candidate forum, so I'm really excited, and I appreciate the opportunity to chat with everybody today and get to know the other candidates. So, you know, that's a great question. I think the one thing that I would try to communicate to Rutland voters is my planning experience. You know, as a professional planner here in Rutland, I think I can bring that planning and vision necessary to continue building this reputation. We're working so hard at, you know, saying we're the best place to live, work, and play, and also continuing our efforts to revitalize our downtown, which is integral to moving Rutland forward. You know, I grew up in Rutland area and intentionally chose to set down roots here in Rutland. You know, I started a career, bought a home, and I think I really represent who we are trying to attract to the city, and will represent that next generation of Rutlanders on the Board of Aldermen. So as a planner, I have direct experience leading committees, building those partnerships that are so important, and improving infrastructure in the Rutland region, because we know Vermont's unique and Rutland is even more unique. So I know what works and what doesn't work for our community. Beyond that, I've cultivated a lot of relationships with folks at City Hall and various state agencies, and will really work to use those relationships to put Rutland forward and make sure that we're well represented. I think it's great how many candidates we have today, and I think we're probably going to hear a lot of candidates agree about a vision for Rutland and growing downtown and all these other great initiatives. But I think I'm going to stand out as the candidate that has that necessary skill set to help realize that vision through planning, public engagement, and revitalization. I really think we're at a critical time in planning for Rutland's future, and I will bring that fresh idea and perspective that moves us all forward. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Devin. David O'Brien.
Can you hear me okay?
I can. Beautiful.
Okay, good. Well, listen, this is really terrific to be part of this forum. Actually, it's my first candidate forum also. I've been around this world for a long, long time, but I've actually never actually run for something. So I'm having a whole new experience here. I guess if I was to say one thing that I bring to the Board of Aldermen, I would say it's leadership. By virtue of the things I've done in my career, I've always been in a leadership role. I've sought to be the leader. And the important distinction I would make is not just to be a leader, but to be a collaborative leader. And if I get a chance to be an alderman, you'll hear a lot of that from me, which is, you know, you have to be a leader by willing to step up and set standards or set a path, but also work with others. I really appreciated what Rebecca said along those lines. I think that's exactly, you know, the kind of thing we need. Specifically, the experience I have, for those who don't know, I first came to town to be the credit manager at Green Mountain Bank. And so I have a background in finance and doing that and leading a team there. And then I went to Rutland Economic Development, where I was there for 10 years. So a lot of the things around developing our downtown, building jobs and opportunity, I know all about that and led that organization. And then I went to work for the state, was appointed by Governor Douglas to be Commissioner of Public Service, and I did that for 8 years. And throughout all these things, I've always had just a very strong burning desire to help people and do the right thing, whether it's for consumers as a regulator or for the citizens of the region from an economic development perspective. And now I feel I'm sort of coming full circle, you know, gosh, is it 30 years later? You know, coming back and wanting to serve the community, because I think this is a really important time to help. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, David. Matthew Reveal. Matt.
Tom, good to see you again. Thank you, Peg TV, and thank you, Tom. Glad to be here. It's like riding a bike. This is old hat for me. What I bring to the table is experience. Having served on the board before with a lot of these incumbents, you know, where I stand out is experience. I can jump right in. I've served on committees. I've been on a lot of the committees, and even the committees I wasn't on, as some of the other aldermen can attest to, I went to the other committee meetings. I always wanted to know what was going on in the community. Even if I wasn't on that committee, I paid deep attention to every aspect of what was going on at City Hall. You know, if elected again, I could jump right in and chair a committee this time. It wouldn't be my first time around. You know, I've gone through a budget process, which is a long, grueling project, as the incumbents can attest to, and any alderman that's served in the past. It's a couple month process to get through the board to pass a city budget, and I've already sat through that, and it's grueling. As you said earlier when we kicked off this forum, that 3 candidates aren't running. We're going to get 3 new candidates no matter what, possibly 6. But best case scenario, I'm hoping that I'm one of them and I jump right in and I have experience. I think that's what sets me above the other candidates, other than the 3 incumbents that are re-electing their seats. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Matt. And by the way, those 3 candidates that aren't running open up 3 chairmanships, one on the Finance Committee, one on the General Committee, and one on the Community and Economic Development Committee. Carrie Savage, the floor is yours. Thanks for being so patient.
No worries. Thank you very much, Tom, for hosting us, and Peg TV, and to all the other candidates running. This is an amazing field to be part of. It is my first time running, although I've thought of running over a number of years. But when I mentioned it to people that I've worked with on boards and in my professional life that I was interested, they said, this is the time. Like, they gave me encouragement, and it's wonderful to have taken the step. What I bring is my experience in being an educator and working in nonprofits with budgeting and with large boards, having to create processes and mechanisms to enact positive outcomes for my places of employment. I'm a small business owner myself with my husband. I come from a history of small business owners here in Rutland. It's a wonderful place and community to do business in. So pushing that story out there and encouraging others to take the chance on Rutland to live here. We have the best set of educators in the state. I couldn't be happier as a parent with my children in the Rutland school systems. So young families need to know that being here is a wonderful and supportive place. With writing and marketing skills, to tell the story of Rutland, that it's a wonderful place to live and to be here. I look forward to being able to do that too. And nervous. But just I bring an intellectual curiosity about how things work, and so that has been my attractiveness to running in the past. I'm a good listener, a little nerdy and wanting to get into the nuts and bolts of things and why things are working or not working the way they are. And so, I look forward to listening and to trying to help everybody figure out just the next steps forward for Rutland and to telling our story. And that is it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
So I just want to tell you, as a former alderman myself and lifelong voter, I think I missed one vote since the age of 18, which was sometime when I was away at college. You were going to make this a difficult choice for the voters this year. We really need to push this program out there. I want to tell you, just through the first question, you all sound fantastic. And I'm really so proud of the group of candidates that are running this year for the board. It really speaks highly of you and of this city. And we need to make sure the voters watch this program, because you guys really sound tremendous. And I just want to thank you for stepping up and offering your services as a candidate for the Rutland City Board of Aldermen. Having said that, we'll go back to the A's and back to John Atwood and ask question number 2. And this one, a little bit different tone, but we want to ask, the Board of Aldermen have been divided on many issues in recent years. How would you propose to bring the board together moving forward?
Thanks, Tom. This is a really interesting question. How do you bring any group of people together that are divided? I think you have to start from a place of honesty. You have to communicate what you want and why you want it and what your values are. And you have to be clear about that. And I think that if the different sides are communicating their values clearly and working honestly to understand one another and what each other's needs are, I think there can be some room there created to come together. I think when we start to avoid communicating with each other and we kind of put ourselves into our own camps where we start to make assumptions about the other side that are unverified and may not be true, that creates division and makes it easier to just get into our own echo chamber. So I think it's very important first to be truthful and to really seek to understand what the other side wants. Why do they want what they want? And then once you know that, you can begin to find areas of commonality and work toward a common goal. And I think a lot of times with these divisions, we're really looking at two sides of the same thing. And if we rephrase the question or rephrase the problem, we'll find that there's actually more commonality than we expect. So I think there's opportunities in public service to be able to facilitate that kind of communication, learn about other groups, and understand what motivates people to bring people together. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Rick Battles.
Thanks, Tom. Could you just repeat that, please?
You bet. The Board of Aldermen has been divided on many issues in recent years. How would you propose to bring the board together moving forward?
Well, as if elected, I would try to earn everybody's trust, try to get everybody on the same page. I know it's hard to be not divided because everybody has their own thoughts. But working as one group of aldermen, we need to come to a common goal and decide what the taxpayers need and want, and to also come together as a full board and make sure that this city, the city of Rutland, is run the right way. And right now, I think that myself, and if, like I said before, if elected, I would be on there to earn people's trust, the rest of the board's trust, and we could also try to come to, like I said before, try to come to a common goal together. That's what this city is all about, togetherness. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Chad Snyder DeAngelis.
There we go. Sorry about that. So here's where I'm at with this. I think the Board of Aldermen for maybe the past 4 to 6 years have gotten bogged down in so many little details and minutia. And if you look at life, it's often the little details that divide us. I mean, we can all kind of grasp the big picture. I think we all kind of want the same things in a lot of ways. We all would like to see our children have great educations. We want to see our roads get fixed. We want to see taxes not go up. I'd like to see the Board of Aldermen maybe try to take on a few big projects that they can find some common ground and understanding in. Things that we can really just put out there and say, this is what we're doing. And that's going to make a legitimate, strong, lasting impact and help people. And maybe it's revitalizing downtown, and maybe it's trying to work on our homeless problem. But I think there's a lot of areas that if we just sat down and communicated openly and honestly, we could agree on. And if we just get people to leave the egos at the door and just come in with a place of honesty and understanding and humility. That's the biggest thing that I think we all have to work on, especially I do, is just being humble and knowing that we don't know all the answers, but maybe the people around us do. And if we're all expressing these feelings and knowledge that we have, we're going to come up with a good solution to a lot of the city's issues. So.
Thank you, Chad. Mike Dunges.
Thanks, Tom. So no one runs for a seat on the Board of Aldermen because the pay is phenomenal, right? Every single person on that board today, tomorrow, in the future, all have already kind of a common goal in mind, and that's the success of our city from their point of view and their perspective, right? They want to see Rutland succeed, whether that's through growth or, you know, economic security or whatever that happens to be. Everyone has the city as their goal to be successful in their eyes. And that common thread is really where we can all start from. If everybody's driving for that success and everybody's driving for that growth, the next piece is kind of the goal setting and the planning. Putting a goalpost out there far enough that everybody can look at it, everybody can see it. And yes, there may be different paths to get to that location, and there may be different roads we can take to get there. And we may all disagree on exactly how long and how quickly we want to move to get to those points. But by having that goalpost, we can set a plan. We can use the skills that are on the board of the people that are there and their perspectives and the history and the opinions and the experience to drive towards that final goal, which again, probably at its root is the success of the Rutland City. So when we can kind of come together on that point, on that one common goal, I think that removes all of the other minutia and argument and detail and really drives us to be a successful city as a whole.
Thank you, Mike. Thomas Franco.
Thank you, Tom. And, you know, I agree with a lot of what has been said so far. But I do think that this is a really important question. You know, as I have been out talking to voters and hearing from neighbors and community members, you know, it's clear to me that this is something important to them, that our board show unity and that we are able to collaborate with one another. And really at the heart of that, I believe, is communication. I think it comes down to our ability to have fruitful discussion and dialogue. Now, that is not always, you know, our ideas are not always going to align. And that's the beauty of democracy, really, is that we have these differences of opinion. But our ability to, you know, come to terms with a set of shared facts, right, and operate from a shared framework, and then have those differences of opinion is really, really core to moving forward. And I believe ultimately that we as a board have a responsibility to put our differences aside and to really do what's in the best interest of our city. And as city leaders, that means focusing on issues that, you know, when it comes to our roads, our infrastructure, it comes to our taxes, it comes to our, you know, innovation and how we make this community thrive. You know, we have that responsibility to set aside our differences in the name of the city. And really at the end of the day, we are all one Rutland, right? We have to live and coexist with one another, right? We go to the same grocery stores, we walk down the same streets. And if we are not able to set aside our differences to be able to have that communication and coexist, then we are really failing our residents. So I wholeheartedly agree with what a lot of the candidates are saying, and I believe we have to learn how to communicate. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Billy Gillum.
Thank you. Well, I have to disagree with the question because I don't believe this community is divided. I think they have some issues they don't agree on 100%, but we have passed budgets. We have got gymnasiums purchased. We have worked on roads. We have worked on sidewalks. We have worked on contracts. We have worked on a vision for the city. We've worked on organizations and finance organizations that help us move that goal. I think we are mostly in agreement. There is some issues that we're split on, but most of the things that come forward to us in all these meetings and all these committees, especially the sign ordinance that we just did, we did a wonderful job, and the chairman, Rebecca, has pushed us through that. We came together, we compromised and got it done. And that's how it works there. We're not going to get 100%, and I understand that. The key thing is when we're divided, we need to be respectful, need to listen and understand the other side, and then have your opinion. But I always lean on my neighbors. When I'm in a situation where I can't make up my mind, I go to my neighbors and ask them, where do you want to be here? And normally I bring that opinion to the table because I've seen the best of Rutland. I've seen it through the flood, Irene. I've seen it through the hurricane that we had here. I've seen it through COVID. I've seen it at Stuff-A-Bus. I've seen the community really come out and work together. Yes, we're going to disagree on some items, but we need to do it respectfully.
Thank you, Bill. Russell Blitman.
Thank you. I do agree with a lot of what's been said. Honest communication is really important. People need to check their ego at the door. And while we may agree on many things, there have been disagreements. And I think that's somewhat a reflection of the body politic at large. But we are a small community and we do see each other. So it's imperative that we work really closely together. I view this as kind of a project then, and how I would approach that as a project is to find first that common ground that people were talking about. And I'm sure there's always, on any given issue, there's going to be some things we can agree on. But get out the whiteboard and list the different approaches, the different pros and cons from the different people. Do a Venn diagram, and there's going to be some intersection of ideas and proposals that we can agree on. And do a small project, something that is achievable in a short time, in a short amount of time, that can be a proof of concept of how we can work together and achieve something that's good for the community. But we do need to work together, and it does need to be collaborative, and it does need to be honest communication.
Thank you, Russell. Cam Johnston.
Yeah, I actually have been thinking as we've been going through this process. And I think one of the things I think Alderman Gillum is quite right in terms of a lot of stuff does go lock and step. And so the operations of government will still go on regardless of whether I intervene or not. But I think what I would bring to the issue is that the willingness to sort of break things down as to the components that they actually are. The Raiders name change is a classic example that some people are so mad that they're saying vote down the school budget. Now, I'm personally asking people not to do that because in COVID, it is absolutely essential we have stability on that side. And I think one of the difficulties is even though we're one community, we have the funding is split between the school and the Board of Aldermen. So they don't have control over each other's budgets, and they complain that the other side's spending too much or not addressing the issues that are at hand. So I think that what really would need to happen is that people need to engage in dialogue. And the power struggle that is occurring now, I think, is the result of an abuse of wedge issues and the resolution abuse in terms of every time there's a current topic, people want to have an immediate answer, want to have an immediate vote, and don't work on the language. And what I would focus in on is the first thing we need to do is reform the charter and ordinance, because there are a lot of provisions in there that are questionable as to whether they're constitutional or not. And we spent a lot of time previously getting some of the language right, but I think it needs a total rehaul. And the focus, if we have to focus on our real core needs, that would be a way to sort of focus this together. I think there's too much money in politics, so I would ask people not to simply vote for people because they have money. I would also indicate that public email accounts that I advocated before is that it provides the central understanding that people have to work together. And I would also suggest that I can't read my notes, but if the unity is the purpose, the taxpayers may actually solve this problem. They may go one way or the other, and therefore the board composure would change to such an extent that there would be no disunity because the public has picked the members that have already identified what side of the issues they're on. So I would ask people to be less partisan because the Democrats have a hold in the city, and yet there are a lot of members that still have cross appeal. So I will end there to say that I don't think that I could magically solve everything, but I would be more than willing to talk to everybody. And even people that don't like me say that they at least I give consideration to other people's point of view. So thank you for the opportunity to opine on this. And I think that it is an important topic that we need to deal with seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Cam. I was once chair of the Charter and Ordinance Committee, and it wasn't that much fun.
I never promised that.
Dr. Mattis, you have the floor.
Thank you, Tom. Would you please read the question again?
Absolutely, yes. The Board of Aldermen has been divided on many issues in recent years. How would you propose to bring the board together moving forward?
Thank you. You know, Tom, I want to agree with Billy Gillum, who was correct to point out that the board indeed is unified, you know, well over 90% of the time, 95% of the time. We agree on what the problems are, and it just comes a matter of, you know, what's the best way to solve it, you know, what is the evidence at hand, and you know, who's asking good questions, and we pay attention to who asks good questions. It doesn't matter who they are. And I think we do a great job at solving those concrete problems. What tends to divide the board are symbolic issues, partisan issues, things that are indicative of, say, a certain cultural divide. And those are very tricky. They have to do with people's identities, their political and cultural identities. And this is how I think you solve that. And this is what I have done assiduously over my 4 years on the board. And again, I think that anyone who has seen me on the board knows that. You have to bring your best self to the table, and you have to listen for the best in other people. An example was the Rutland Raiders issue. So when that came to the board, even though it was a school board issue, I listened for the values that people were expressing, and I honored their values. It didn't matter whether I agreed or disagreed with them. I was listening for the best in them and for what their needs were. So I think that's really important. That is how you build trust. You don't vilify people. You try to make connections. And I really appreciate what Cam said about taking the time to do a process of listening and understanding those needs. Don't just try to answer something immediately, but take the time to build common ground. Again, with the sign ordinance, it took 2 years to build that common ground. It took a ton of effort, but it happened because I was willing to take that time. And that time can be taken on these hot button issues as well. It takes a lot of courage to not vilify your opponents, because people on your side say, why aren't you vilifying them? I've certainly gotten a lot of flack for treating my opponents on the board as people who have needs and values of their own that are honorable and respectable. But I believe in that, and I will always do that as I have done it. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Rebecca. Devin Neri, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Tom. And honestly, thanks for bringing up this question. Not that I'm prepared for it, but it's seriously an issue that a lot of people seem to be holding on to and talking about and wanting their board to really step up and solve this issue. And, for me, I think everybody has had great answers, but for me, it's something even more basic. And it's just always reminding yourself why we're here and why we're doing this. As Mike Dunn just said, no one's getting rich. This is a thankless job. It's a bunch of time campaigning and participating on the board. It's not an easy thing to do. So, I think we need to remind ourselves that everybody in the Board of Aldermen has the best intentions of Rutland in mind. No one's going on there trying to sink the ship intentionally, and they're really giving a lot of their time and energy to make things better. So I think it's really about just reminding ourselves that these are our neighbors. And in Vermont, we are a neighborly bunch, and we need to remember that. I've spoken to a lot of current and former aldermen, and they have tremendously great stories about these really heated debates during session, and then right after going right to the bar and having a beer with the person they were just fighting about. And I understand that COVID has really strained that sort of social fabric that has really made us human and interact together. So I think it's important that we find ways to cultivate personal relationships with every board member, regardless of what you think they might be on the political spectrum, and then foster that respect, earn that respect to form the unity. I think generally speaking, we have good discourse on the board and in the community, but between COVID and national politics bleeding into local politics, I think that has strained those relationships. And one of the beautiful aspects of local government is we don't have to declare a party. We are all just in this big bunch, all working towards making Rutland better. So I think, losing the titles, losing the preconceived notions, and just saying, hey, you're my neighbor, let's work together to get this done. That might be pie in the sky, but I'm seeing a lot of people shake their heads, and I think everyone agrees that, Rutland is a place that can buck that national trend and just worry about the issues and work together to get those solved.
And Devin, I can testify that you're right on one issue, because I used to own a bar that we went to after the meetings.
That sounds like a conflict of interest, Tom.
David O'Brien.
Hey, thanks, Tom. Yeah, isn't there something about not promoting your business while you're on the Board of Aldermen? So
many moons ago.
Listen, time gone by, right? I just love where that just ended, that idea of, being on a board of aldermen like this and having disagreements, and then, going and having a beverage together or having time together. I really think that's something our country has lost. And I think it's why people are so disenchanted with our leadership in Washington. I'm not talking about the president or whatever, but Congress always being in disagreement. I would say that the reason how I think about this is I don't think we can afford to be divided. I think we have far too many things that we have to tackle here as a community. Let's just, to take an inventory. We're going through pandemic and all that has represented, losses of businesses, people losing their jobs, people just being emotionally strained. Okay. And then if you look at our numbers economically, and I've looked at them from time to time, we have work to do. And I'm talking about the fundamentals of how many people not only employed, but employed in a way that they can earn a high quality living and own a home and support a family and so on. And if you look at our numbers in Rutland County, they're not very good. If you look at our demographics also, we're an aging population. We're facing an incredibly competitive landscape globally. I remember this from my times at Reddick. We're up against some stiff competition. We think we have quality of life. We absolutely do. I love having Pico at my doorstep, and I'm there all the time. And I love all of that. But the fact is, lots of other places have quality of life. So I don't think we have the time for division. I'm not running in any way thinking there was an issue or a dynamic with the Board of Aldermen. I'm running because I look at us in 2021, the past year. Oops, I had my timer on, so I went past 2 minutes. I was self-governing myself there. Yeah, but I would just finish by saying, we've got, all these things that have gone on in the past year, and where I think we need to be, we just can't afford to be sort of squabbling. That's just not in our interest, and it's not at all what I think the voters or our citizens deserve.
Thank you, David. Matthew Reveal.
Tom, I always disliked having Reveal as a last name because you're close to the last in a lot of things. And I'm looking at my notes that I got written down here, and there isn't really one thing that I have on my notes that someone hasn't already said. However, I will say this. Rutland is like a family. And as everyone has pointed out, we don't run for alderman for a pay reason. Do we even get paid? I forget. But we're here because we love this community and we treat it like a family. And I know I fight with my brothers and sisters. I'm sure everyone else has brothers and sisters does as well. And you're never going to get along. But the most important thing is at the end of the day, when you all settle up at the dinner table or you all walk into that alderman chambers, you unite as a family to reach a common goal and you hug it out at the end of the day. And Tom, my wife and I do own an establishment that we go to at the end of alderman meetings for a couple adult beverages afterwards. So, it is, and we did that a lot when I was on the board, and I look forward to, if elected, that continuing because, I think we solved more after the meeting than we did during the meeting because we talked a little more civil and respected each other when you weren't in front of that camera or you weren't on the spotlight of what the community thought, and you worked it out as a family. And I really think that's what Rutland's about.
Thank you, Matt. Carrie Savage.
Yeah, coming at the end of everyone's answers, I have to say, you guys I've done a wonderful job. There are so many good answers to this question. And it is something that in my discussions with people that I've heard brought up as well. Having been a teacher in the front of a high school classroom, leading spirited discussions with many varied differences of opinion, I found that it works best when everyone involved feels listened to and is able to have their say, and is also respected. But then you need that bringing back of attention to what you're there for, to the task at hand. So that is reminding everyone what we're there for, the task, to get the work done, what the work is, having a clear vision for what the work is, I think is kind of the way to handle that, especially that I've had experience in as an educator. So I would kind of bring that perspective to the board and to the task.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
Just want to say, you guys are all, without embellishment, you guys are really all hitting it out of the park. And I hope every voter in the city watches this before they vote on March 2nd. Although, quite frankly, it might make the decision more difficult for them. But at the same time, I'm wishing now that we could expand the number of aldermen to include all of you on the board at this point. You all really sound fantastic, and I can't wait to put this out to the public to listen to you and your very thoughtful answers. With that, we've got one more to go. We'll have one last round here, and basically, we want to kind of clarify, what your vision is for the city with this question. So, what we're going to ask you now is, we'll go back to John Atwood to start us off. If elected on March 2nd, what would be your top priority issue or initiative for the city of Rutland? What would be your top priority issue or initiative for the city of Rutland if elected on March 2nd?
Thanks, Tom. This is also a very interesting question, and I've been thinking about it a lot. I really think that growth starts with people. I think as a city, our greatest resource are the people who are here. So, we all talk about economic development and the need to increase our grand list. And I really think that the way we do that is by continuing to invest in the people who are here, whether that's making sure that we have good amenities so that people can enjoy recreational opportunities or enjoy, or making sure that our schools are well run and well funded, making sure that our small businesses are supported. There's lots of things that go into that. I think that our growth is going to come from within. We're going to invest in the people who are here. They're going to be successful in finding connections to other community members. That's going to lead to business opportunities, to opportunities for cultural connections, for friendship. And that's really what connects people to the place and helps them to be successful. That's what keeps people here. That's what attracts people to come and move to Rutland. When they see that you can move here, you can be connected, you can take part in lots of different activities and lead a rich and fulfilling life. So I think my focus on the Board of Aldermen is going to be to seek to find ways that everything we do can really foster that connectedness and foster a really sense of pride in being a citizen of Rutland. And I think that if people feel that, they're going to start putting their energy into the community, and that's going to create a positive feedback cycle where people will create opportunities for each other. So I think there's a lot of things that we're already doing that work toward this, like the economic development activities that the Chamber is doing, the revolving loan fund, revitalizing downtown housing. All of these activities are going in the right direction. And I think we just need to continue focusing on these things and seeking to tie them into other sort of not directly economic opportunities. So looking at the quality of life from both an economic and social perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Rick Battles.
Yes, thank you, Tom. Could you repeat that, please?
You bet. If elected on March 2nd, what would be your top priority issue or initiative for the city of Rutland?
If elected on March 2nd, I would tell the taxpayers that I would like to, keep the tax rate down, continue city services, which are great now, but if we needed to upgrade them, I would work hard at that. Public safety, the fire, police, they do a great job. If elected, I would probably push to be on that board. And keep the city services up. The budget. I mean, work for a common ground on the city budget that the city taxpayers would go out and vote in favor of. And to continue, to get the people's trust and to make sure that the Board of Aldermen do things the right way and come to a common ground on all the issues and keep this city moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Chad Snyder DeAngelis, you have the floor.
So, I've been trying to think about this last few weeks, because everyone always asks me, they go, why are you running? And I remember when I moved here 11 years ago and I had help. I had a lot of help, and I'm appreciative of it for the better life that I have today. I got to go back to school. I got to basically reboot everything and start over at a better place because people cared. And I want the people that live in Rutland now to know that they can do that, because I've met with a lot of people that are disenfranchised. We talk about Rutland's aging population. We also need to take a very hard and strong look at those that are younger and not doing as well, and most likely are not going to be able to stay in Rutland long term and become more productive and more successful and be able to buy houses and put money back into our community. I can tell you just from meeting with a lot of people that it's going to be there for them. And I just want to work with them on finding programs that help. Anything the city can do to help promote, be it working with CCV more, maybe trying to find some more affordable housing options for them. I know that's a huge deterrent. A lot of our voters and people that live in this city are now having to live with family and friends because they've lost their homes due to COVID or a variety of other issues. And it's tough. It is so tough to drive around and see it. And I really think that we've got to focus on that and take a strong look. And it also involves working with our churches and our other community organization groups. Instead of having just these pieces here, 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 and here, we've really got to find a way to get on the same collective page and work together, because we've got an amazing amount of resources, but they're separate and people don't always communicate them. And I've talked to people and they've said, well, we went here and they sent us here and they sent us here, and then we came back to here to find the same answer. We've got to find a way to just have a collective voice that we care, we're here to help, and we want everyone in Rutland to be successful.
Thank you, Chad. Mike Dunges.
Thanks, Tom. Just for the last question, I want to say thank you to you for hosting. Thanks for Peg TV for putting this together and having us all on. And a big thanks to John Atwood for fielding all the questions first, because he had to come up with the answers on the fly, although I'm sure he's got the background to support it. Well, we get to think about it for a few minutes before we respond. So, for me, I've kind of said it a couple of times, but I'm really going to harp on this piece. I think a long-term vision, a long-term goal, and a plan that aligns to those things for Rutland is probably the most important. When you have those pieces in place, the decisions that we make as a city and how it affects the direction that we're going to go in, where we're going to spend the money, how we build the budget, how we leverage our resources, whatever's available, right? And how we're good stewards of the money that we have in the budget to put those things in the right place, all kind of falls in line. John mentioned the people. If you look at any of these plans that Rutland puts together, whether it's Stuff a Bus or Pack the Paramount, or the Gift of Life Marathon, whatever we do it to excess and success. It is phenomenal what this community comes together on, and you don't find that elsewhere in the country. You can't go to other cities and find a community that comes together to support each other like Rutland does. And because we have that strength and a vision, when we do those things, we are that successful. And I think that the city of Rutland has the capability, with the people and the resources, to do the exact same thing with the government and drive to that common vision and that common goal that we can put together based on the citizens' perspective. And I really do think that will make us as a community even more successful than we are today, and continue to grow everything that comes along with that, whether that's economic development or individuals moving here because they love the community, or just people in their own families because they can afford to live here and do business here and have a job here and, send their kids to school here. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thomas Franco.
Thank you, Tom. And again, thank you to PEG TV for having us all here. I mean, it's been a great conversation. When it comes to what I would do if elected, I really want to get at the heart of this, which is innovation. I believe that we are in this critical moment where, we are facing stiff competition. And if we're going to market ourselves as this forward-thinking, best place to live, work, and play, we have to be able to meet that competition where it is. And so for me, my initiative would be driving Rutland as a hub of innovation in a few different ways, in leveraging more data analytics to have the numbers to identify our inefficiencies, to understand what our goals are and visualize those goals, have those goals apparent, and hold ourselves accountable to meeting them, both for the public and for city leaders. Without that data, without knowing where we are, it's really hard to have a clear vision toward how you're reaching that end goal and making progress in the city. I also believe that within innovation, we have to think about our infrastructure. And for me, that, and my background in broadband, to me, that means moving toward fiber, right? Rutland has great coverage of cable internet, but we have not had the infrastructure in place for fiber. And we are in this moment where we have an opportunity to step into that and to position ourselves as a future leaning city. And I also believe that we need to better understand the needs of our community through that data and that we are collecting and analyzing, because even pre-pandemic, we have had a lot of weaknesses in our workforce, and we have an aging workforce that we need to address, but without understanding the specific needs and the behaviorisms and understanding how we can specifically target and help those individuals most in need of our assistance, it's really difficult to actually get over that barrier. So for me, it comes down to innovation. I believe we have to start thinking long-term, think about our future, and position ourselves as a really forward-leaning city. And I hope that I have the opportunity to help us do that as aldermen.
Thank you, Thomas. I just had a birthday on the same day as Abe Lincoln on the 12th of February, and I am part of that aging workforce, so you're absolutely right about that. William Billy Gillum Jr.
How you doing?
Great.
Thank you very much, Tom and PEG TV, for allowing us to happen here. The number one thing with me, positive attitude. That's the first thing we got to bring to the table right now. A lot of things have been happening. A lot of people don't know they've been happening. The Vermont Youth Project, the Hunger Coalition, the towns are starting to work together. The Solid Waste District is working together. We have all these things, and I'm attached to all those things. All those things are moving, and we're doing things as a partner. Rutland City is an island. We no longer can be an island. We need to work with our brethren and sisters in the other towns, okay? Because we all can't do it alone. We need to work together. We need to do that. So the main thing is we need to have an attitude that we can do and will do and get there. And I think all the other pieces will move in place once we get the attitude corrected. I think that's the most important right now, because people are really hurting out there because of COVID. People have been isolated. They're all in their own little silos. So we need to get ready for post-COVID So this summer, we need to come out and we start to get back to work and start making things happen.
Thank you, Bill. Russell Blitman.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you again for your efforts and time here and bringing us all together. It has been really interesting. This is something I've thought about, and I needed to come to recognition to even run. I'm running because I have a straightforward platform: growth through diversity. Let me tell you what I mean by those three words. I think that by taking actions that promote diversity, by welcoming people of all faiths and no faith, of different sexual orientation, of different racial backgrounds, and from different countries, that we can attract new, dynamic, and engaged residents, and in turn, businesses. This will grow our grand list, this will change the tone of discourse in the city, and it will move Rutland on a transformative path of inclusion and equity that in turn will attract even more new residents. So as an alderman, I will champion diversity, equality, and inclusivity in Rutland. This starts with education, awareness, celebration, and support. And to that end, I'm advocating for a slate of initiatives. I want to create a diversity council composed of members from groups such as Rights and Democracy, the Rutland County NAACP, Bridge to Rutland, Migrant Justice, Project Vision, the Rutland Rotary, and Habitat for Humanity, as well as representatives of city government and schools. And the goal of this council will be to develop events and initiatives that promote diversity. I also want to support a movement to work with the Biden administration and the Bridge to Rutland to bring asylum seekers and refugees to the community. I think when we look at the 3 Syrian families that came here and the stellar example that they show, that there's a lot of reason to look for these people. They're extremely dynamic and resourceful people. They are taking a huge risk to come to this country. And I think that's the type of people we want to encourage to live in our community. I plan to place diversity issues on the agenda of the Board of Aldermen and to start the process of growth by making Rutland a city that attracts people of various backgrounds. I want to work with landlords in Castleton University to renovate and attract residents to downtown. There's a lot of empty upper story room on the Center Street, West Street, et cetera. If we could bring residents into those areas, we'd be attracting businesses to serve them. To fight climate change, I want to rekindle the Solar City initiative and look for alternative energy jobs in the city. And with the expansion of the Amtrak railroad line, passenger traffic to Burlington and hopefully down to Montreal, I think we need to look at a long-term plan to transform Rutland, particularly the core downtown, to be a gateway city for Vermont, for tourists and remote workers. And that's one of the post-COVID things that we need to focus on, is how we can attract remote workers to our city. There's talk about a commuter line between Rutland, Virgins, Middlebury, and Burlington, and we could start to offer services around the railroad station for a commuting population that might be here in 3 to 5 years. I also support universal health care as a basic human right, and I want to work with Rutland Regional Medical Center to provide free clinics and healthcare outreach programs, and to start a medical scholarship program for low-income residents who would get tuition and reimbursement in turn for public service in the city of Rutland in the future. So I think I'm probably going on, but there's a lot of things I'd like to work on in the city, and I hope I have the chance, and I hope I appreciate your taking the time to hear me today. Thank you.
Thank you, Russell. Cam Johnston.
Yeah, hi. That was a lot to follow. If we're focusing in on the issues that we need to deal with, I think the most fundamental thing is to realize that it depends upon what role you're fulfilling. I have the unique opportunity that I could be mayor, I could be treasurer, I could be assessor, alderman, or school board. So it's caused me to have to look at a lot of these issues to try to look for that commonality between the two individual units that we're talking about today. So in a capacity as an alderman, I would make it as a side that people would probably have a better chance of getting elected mayor than they could be elected alderman this time because of the number of candidates. But the issue is that I would ask for a inspector general position to be created. And it would address some of the issues that were just addressed by the person that spoke ahead of me, is because we really need to test out that evidence. It's a lay board of aldermen that they bring unique skills to the table, but they don't have, for example, we just came up with the refugee issues that we should have been having a plan for the last 5 years. So at the point before we commit to anything, I think it would be absolutely essential that we vet the evidence as to what we are able to do and what other elements would come forward. I would also indicate that as we talk about this new internet provider that was provided in the Rutland Herald, that's another issue that did get referred to committee, but the Inspector General again would provide a much more systematic approach to the process, and I think would give us some confidence that things were really were being vetted. I would also hold the administration accountable, that in terms of apparently the audit reports that we aren't totally keeping track of the pension issues. So I would argue that we need to have somebody that does that. And as a supplement to the Inspector General, I would ask for a professional person to head the pension board, because right now the city has one extra vote over the school board and they can't really get anything done. Whereas if you had one person that was dedicated to dealing with the pensions, we really need to put our eye on the ball on that one. And the fact that they didn't fully fund it this year adds even more reason as to why we need to determine how this can't happen again. And the final thing is the process as we go through it. I would simply ask people to fully look at the ballot, decide who you know who they are and what issues are important to you. And I think I can fulfill any role that you give me. And I appreciate the opportunity to engage with the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Cam. Rebecca Mattis.
Thank you, Tom. And thanks again to PEG TV for putting on this forum. Boy, top goal. Well, my vision for the city is to have an attractive city that works for everyone, that works for residents and businesses and visitors. What does it mean to have a city that works? It means that we have functional infrastructure that's in good shape and is maintained. It means a focus on public safety, and included that is pedestrian safety and traffic safety. It means maintaining and improving the city's appearance. We have a lot going for us. I think we can make improvements in that area as well. And it means improving government function. I think we function well in terms of our services to the people of the city. We can always improve the functions of government. We can always listen better and include people more. I want to appreciate Thomas Franco's mention of data. Data is extremely important, and planning. You can't plan for the future without data. And the data that I've seen used, for example, we had a housing needs assessment done where it was shown that we really need to concentrate on single family housing and affordable housing. We have used that data in our work on, say, the City-Owned Properties Committee to decide how to guide the development of the city according to that data. In my work on the Traffic Committee, there's been talk about the very real need for a traffic study, because we have a variety of traffic issues. Pedestrian safety was a major issue that came up before COVID. And that's something that I really want to work on more. With a traffic study, we can see what parts in the city need attention for pedestrian access. And I'm hoping that that will happen soon. You know, this is a big question. And my way of doing things is always, you know, I do little projects. I do what's in front of me. So it's kind of hard to answer such a visionary question. I've got the things I'm working on, and they're nitty gritty, they're nuts and bolts. So I want to do my part in the way that I have done, and keep working for a functional city. That's it. Thanks so much, Tom.
Thank you, Rebecca. Devin Neary.
Tom, I gotta hand it to you. Not only was this painless, but it was moderately enjoyable. So that's a feat. Thank you. These questions are brutal. I totally understand how Rebecca feels. There's how can you culminate all these thoughts and feelings into one answer? And I guess for me, my answer would be, comprehensive planning that looks at things holistically. It's so easy to get caught up in the minutia and just get tunnel vision and look at these problems in a vacuum, when really things like accessibility touch all parts of life. And as a planner, I've really learned that transportation planning is really land use planning, is really health planning. It all works together, and we have to keep that in mind, that if we're looking to do this one thing, it will have impacts on the other side of the city. So, when we're responding to the pandemic, which should be one of our biggest priorities, to help our businesses to make sure that they not only survive but thrive. But at the same time, we need to be moving these initiatives forward in these big projects that are easily to get stalled out. And for me, the easiest way to keep the foot on the pedal and moving forward is to have that strong foundation and planning that you can reference and say, okay, here we are meeting our goals, we are meeting our schedule. In every job I've ever had, I've had to put together my own work plan and follow that work plan, and it keeps you on task. And I think the city having that planning document, or prioritizing planning, will make that happen. Because I think moving Rutland forward isn't just one issue. It's not just one person. I think looking at the successes of groups like Project Vision that have collaborated and brought all different disciplines together to work towards common goals, that's what city government can do too. We don't have to bear that burden as an 11-person board. We can look and really mobilize the folks and resources that can get it done and collaborate to make sure that works. The other thing, and I'm really glad Chad brought this up, is the marginalized folks in our community. And I'm taking an equity planning class right now, actually, and what we're learning is, true community and economic development doesn't happen in the middle. We have to include the margins as well, because those folks, when given an opportunity, are going to be improving the grand list, working, paying taxes, helping the workforce development. So I think looking at things comprehensively is really important. And, I hope that with my skill set as a planner, I can help to guide those, establishing those kind of principles for the board, and really just, helping to move that forward. So before I hop off here, I just want to say that most important thing out of this whole debate is I want to remind the voters to get out and vote on March 2nd. We had a historic turnout in November, so let's try to keep that momentum going and really get involved in your political process. And I think everyone has demonstrated here today that, we're all capable of doing the job. So I hope folks here today, regardless of win or lose, they will, continue to forge ahead and work hard to help make this city better. Thanks.
Thank you, Devin. David O'Brien.
Yes, thanks, Tom. So the thing I guess I would really focus on as a member of the Board of Aldermen would be the economic development of the city and really the region. I would agree with maybe it was Billy's comment earlier. It's not Rutland City is not going to be an island, and at the end of the day, we're talking about 62,000 people in the county, 18,000 people in the city. We have to think, at the right scale and the interconnectedness of the city and the rest of the region. And that's how we always thought about it at Reddick. And one of the reasons why I'm running is I was, coming back to town, a number of years ago and being around, but not being engaged. I was reflecting on what the city was like before I left to go to Montpelier, in 2002. And it was at the end of a really good run of projects that have come into fruition, the downtown redevelopment, the plaza, a lot of things have fallen into place. And, I used to spend a lot of time at, Three Tomatoes having dinner and see everybody I know. And there was definitely a feeling of optimism and positive thought. And I look at my city now that I, live in, but mostly work elsewhere. I make my living way outside of Rutland. And I don't see those signs of success and prosperity. And I want to be careful and say I'm a cynic optimist. I've been around long enough to sort of be practical and realistic, but I'm absolutely optimistic about what our future can be. And so I think we need to focus on economic development, as I've talked about. My way of going about it, though, would be really focusing on the things that businesses rely on to start or to come to Rutland. We've got to pay attention to the fundamentals of the quality of the workforce, the cost of doing business, and any kind of restraint on doing business, permitting process, all those things. I think if we wanted to, and the Board of Aldermen was really motivated to work together, we could focus on this laser fashion and really look at all those things and say, what can we do to make Rutland the most enjoyable place for a business to be? And whatever things we can do to get out of the way of a business coming here or starting here, from access to capital, workforce, not, going through the permitting process, having a welcoming committee. We did a lot of some of these things when I was at Reddick, 25 years ago, and with the chamber at the time. And we have done it historically. So I would say I would really want to focus on improving the health of our economy that drives a lot of things, including what the downtown ends up looking like, how people feel about each other, how we feel about ourselves as a community.
Thank you, David. Matthew Reveal, the floor is yours.
Oh, you're a good man, Tom. Thank you. And thanks, Peg TV. And thank you to all the other candidates today for taking the time out of their day. It is a Thursday at 2 p.m. when he started. So I know a lot of us took some time out of work. My number one thing that I want to focus on is probably coming out of post-COVID. We all like to think that we're moving in the right direction. Like I said earlier, my wife and I own a business downtown, as well as I work in the beverage and entertainment industry outside of that. But I look at my wife's business, for example. In 2020, we were open 5 months out of the year. We have yet to open the doors in 2021. And I know that there's a lot of businesses out there that are feeling that same strain and same struggle. And I really think we need to come up with a plan and get as much money federally and state level as we can possibly get to help these guys out. I know that stimulus money is going around and all this other stuff, but I really think we need to come up with a plan economically for these businesses. I mean, we've lost a lot of businesses in the last year because of COVID. Just walk the streets of downtown, or not even downtown. I don't even like to focus on downtown. I think Rutland City as a whole is bigger than downtown. We've lost a lot of businesses, and there's a lot of people that are just struggling to stay afloat. And I really think we need to maximize every dollar that we can, whether out of a budget or getting money in that everyone keeps handing out, to do everything that we can to keep the businesses that we had here before we can attract other businesses here. I mean, we need to come up with some sort of game plan with that. And I think it starts at our level. So that will be my number one thing coming, if elected, is to come up with a plan post-COVID for the city of Rutland.
Thank you, Matt. Carrie Savage.
Last again. It is hard.
Last but not least, Carrie. Last but not least.
No, that's okay. You guys have given me so much to think about too, as well as, it's hard to pick one thing is the overreaching thing when so many systems depend on one another in what defines success. I know as residents of Rutland, we've got the will to do it when, whether it's the need for blood or a crisis, Rutland City residents have always come together. And so I think for me, to concentrate on just one thing. I think I'm most excited about getting in and seeing what the work is, seeing what's working, what's not working, identifying processes to go forward with helping small businesses, relocating families here, getting the message out that this is indeed a wonderful place to live, analyzing systems, having the train go all the way up to Montreal and all the way down to DC, having that running again with passengers, I think will be wonderful for Rutland for sure. And I don't know. I'm not good at going on. I'm good at seeing the work and identifying the work and doing the work. And so hoping to get the chance. I encourage too, like Devin, everyone to get out and vote. This is a stellar group of candidates. You really cannot go wrong with any of them. I'm excited to be in this company of people and excited to hear all the ideas and people's visions for the city of Rutland. And thank you to
Great, thank you
Peg
very
TV and
much.
Tom.
So I want to, I'll echo those sentiments, and we will wrap up now, but I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to put yourselves out as a candidate for Rutland City Alderman, but also for taking the time to go on Peg TV and communicate your views and your positions on and thoughts about Rutland's future and what you would do as an alderman, because this is how many voters will have the opportunity to be educated and decide who they're going to vote for. So we really thank you for taking the time today. And I just want to give you all a round of applause because, wow, what a fantastic group of candidates you all are, truly. And I've been at this a long time, and I mean that sincerely. So thank you very much for putting your name on the ballot. On March 2nd, we will be live here at Peg TV to let you know who wins. And by chance you don't, any of you, boy, I sure hope you'll get back in next year and try again, because you really could all add value to the Board of Aldermen. And lastly, of course, want to also say my own thanks to Peg TV, because community access television is one of those things that makes our community great. And Peg TV here in Rutland, public education and government television, is, in my opinion, the best in the state, and probably one of the best in the nation, I would dare say. So we're very fortunate to have this medium to get our community, all the things about our community, basically, on the air all day long, and now, of course, on social media. So with that, we'll wrap up and say we'll see you on the air soon, and also on our various social medias, including YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and the like. So however people are getting their information, hopefully they'll get up to speed on who you are and what you're about before March 2nd. So with that, I'm Tom Donahue, your host today, and thank you again for participating in this forum.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, everybody.
Good to be with you all.
To hang out.
Everyone.
Take care.
Good luck, everybody.
Good
Yes.
luck.
Good luck.